The wind howled, leaves crunched under Mary's feet. It was October, and Hollow Creek was already cold. Mary hugged her thin jacket closer. She missed her old town, she missed her friends. Most of all, she missed her warm house. Here, in Hollow Creek, her family was stuck in a big, drafty mansion on top of a hill. Mary's parents had called it an adventure. An adventure? Who were they kidding? This place was creepy, not exciting. Even in the daylight, the house felt dark and heavy. At night, shadows danced in the corners and strange noises echoed through the empty rooms. Mary wished they had never left home. Her dad said the house was a bargain. He was always looking for a bargain. He said it just needed a little tender, loving care. Mary thought it needed a whole lot more than that. It needed a miracle. Or maybe an exorcist. Mary shivered. She was starting to sound like the kids at school. They had told her all kinds of stories about the house. Stories about a family that had disappeared without a trace. Stories about strange lights and eerie sounds. Stories about a ghost. Mary had tried not to listen. She didn't believe in ghosts, but now, standing here in the cold, with the wind whistling through the trees, she wasn't so sure. The old mansion loomed over Mary, its paint peeled like scabs. The windows, like vacant eyes, stared out blindly. Locals called it Hollow House. A fitting name, Mary thought, for a place that seemed to suck the warmth from her very bones. Haunted, the old woman at the grocery store had whispered, her voice raspy. Best stay away. Mary had brushed it off as the ramblings of an old woman, but as days turned into nights, she felt an unsettling presence, a chill that went beyond the autumn breeze. Her dad, oblivious, hummed as he patched up leaky pipes. Her mum, ever the optimist, saw potential in dusty furniture and faded wallpaper, but Mary felt it, a constant unease, a prickling at the back of her neck, like someone or something was always watching. The stories the townsfolk shared came back to her. Whispers of a family driven mad by grief, of a ghostly woman in a long white gown, of screams echoing through the night. Mary tried to ignore them, but the house seemed to breathe them back at her, amplifying her fear. The old grandfather clock chimed midnight. Its mournful toll echoed through the silent house. Mary lay awake, her heart pounding. She hated this house, hated the way it creaked and groaned, hated the shadows that danced on the walls. Tonight, the usual night sounds seemed amplified. Every rustle of leaves against her window sounded like footsteps. Every creaking floorboard sent shivers down her spine. Sleep was impossible. Fear, a cold fist, gripped her heart. She tossed and turned, her sheets twisting around her like ghostly fingers. She longed for the comfort of her old room, her old life, anything but this suffocating dread. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, Mary threw back the covers and climbed out of bed. Maybe a glass of warm milk would help, she thought, anything to calm her racing mind. She crept down the dark hallway, her bare feet silent on the cold wooden floor. The house seemed to hold its breath, watching her every move. The air grew colder as Mary descended the grand staircase. Moonlight streamed through a nearby window, illuminating a large portrait hanging on the wall. It depicted a beautiful woman in a long flowing gown, her eyes sad and haunting. Mary had seen the portrait before, of course. It was hard to miss. But tonight something was different. The woman's eyes seemed to follow Mary, her lips curled into a mournful smile. Mary shivered, a prickle of unease crawling up her spine. She moved closer, drawn to the painting by an unseen force. The woman in the portrait was captivating. Her sadness felt palpable, her gaze piercing Mary's soul. Mary reached out, her fingers tracing the outline of the woman's delicate hand. As Mary's fingers touched the cold glass covering the portrait, a jolt ran through her arm. The air crackled with energy, and the temperature plummeted. Mary gasped, stumbling backward. The woman in the portrait was gone, replaced by a swirling vortex of shadows. Terror gripped Mary's heart. She stumbled back, her eyes wide with fear. From the swirling darkness within the portrait, a figure emerged. The woman from the painting, her face pale and ethereal, her eyes burning with an eerie light. "Help me!" the ghostly figure whispered, her voice a mournful sigh. Mary didn't need to be told twice. She turned and ran, her bare feet slapping against the cold hardwood floors. Panic surged through her veins, urging her forward. The mansion, once still and silent, seemed to come alive with the sound of her own terrified heartbeat. The temperature dropped further, the air turning icy and thin. Behind her she heard the whisper again, closer now. "Help me!" Mary's breath caught in her throat. She risked a glance over her shoulder. The ghostly figure glided behind her, its white gown billowing, its eyes fixed on Mary with an unnerving intensity. She was gaining on her.